He said I was lying, that Lily fell. Then he smirked, right in front of the cops. I still had her blood on my shirt, and they believed him. Her own mother backed him up, said I was obsessed. One minute I was her protector, the next a suspect. But I had photos, time-stamped, a paper trail, and a promise to my dead brother. He tried to steal her voice, her future. Hell, even her inheritance. What he didn't know? I document everything, and I don't lose when family's on the line. Now I had 21 days to make him wish he'd never touched a cent. My name is Jack Mercer, and I'm 45 years old. I run a small construction firm in town, keeping my promises and my books equally clean. My late brother Tom made me swear I'd always protect his daughter Lily, now 16, especially after he knew the cancer would win. Her mother Susan remarried Darren Whitmore 3 years ago, a man whose polite smiles never reached his eyes when he looked my way. My workshop's been my refuge, the smell of oiled wood and steel tools a constant comfort, while I maintain the old leather tool belt Tom once wore. My former foreman Ray Jenkins still drops by for coffee, both of us knowing something's off about Darren's business dealings. I've kept every contract, every receipt, every document since the day I opened shop. But let me start from the beginning. It was just past 10 when the pounding started. 3 desperate hits that shook my front door. I'd been in the workshop finishing up some estimates when that sound hit me like a hammer to the chest. You know that feeling when your gut screams something's wrong before your brain catches up? I yanked the door open, and there stood Lily, my brother's girl, shaking like a leaf in autumn. Blood had dried around her nose and smeared across her yellow t-shirt. Her hands were scraped raw, bits of gravel still stuck in her palms. The sight of her standing there, trying so hard not to cry, sent ice through my veins. "Uncle Jack," she whispered, voice cracking. That's all she could manage. I pulled her inside, my mind already running through what needed doing. First things first. Evidence. You don't spend 20 years in construction without learning how documentation saves lives. Stay right here, sweetheart. Don't clean up yet. My hands were steady as I grabbed my phone and took photos. Her face, her hands, her clothes. The way her right sleeve was stretched, almost torn. The blood patterns told their own story. Through it all, I kept my voice low and even. "You're safe now. I've got you." I wrapped her in the old quilted blanket from the couch, the one that still smelled faintly of wood shavings and coffee. Some things anchor us when the world spins wild. Her breathing started to match mine. Slow, deliberate. I'd learned that trick years ago when Tom had panic attacks during his treatment. Keep your own rhythm steady, and others will follow. "We're going to the hospital," I told her, already reaching for my keys, "just to make sure you're okay." She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. The drive was quiet except for my simple questions, carefully chosen. "Does anything hurt besides your nose and hands?" A head shake, no. "Did you walk here from home?" A small nod. "Do you want some water?" Another shake. "Ever notice how time feels different when your world's upended?" The digital clock on my dash read 10:23, but it might as well have been midnight or dawn. Tom's voice echoed in my head. "Jack, promise me she'll always have somewhere safe to run." I knew what was coming. Mandatory reporting would kick in the moment we hit the ER. There'd be forms, questions, photographs, evidence bags, a whole chain of custody to preserve whatever story Lily's injuries might tell. One wrong word could sink everything. The hospital parking lot was half empty when we pulled in. I helped Lily out, noting how she stayed pressed against my side. "The doctors need to hear what happened," I said softly. "Just tell them the truth. Exactly as you remember it. Don't try to guess anything you're not sure about." The emergency room doors slid open with a whoosh of antiseptic air. A triage nurse looked up, her eyes going straight to the blood on Lily's shirt. She started toward us with a clipboard and gentle smile, the fluorescent lights harsh overhead. "Sweetheart," the nurse said, crouching slightly to meet Lily's eyes. "Can you tell me what happened?" Lily's fingers dug into my arm as she opened her mouth to speak. I sat in a hard plastic chair outside exam room 3, filling out forms while they checked Lily over. My handwriting stayed neat, years of permits and contracts paying off when it mattered most. Every detail had to be crystal clear, especially the timeline. 10:07 p.m. Lily at my door. 10:23. Left for hospital. No room for confusion. The nurse, Sandra according to her badge, documented everything with methodical care. "Minor contusion to the nasal bridge," she dictated while photographing. "Abrasions on both palms consistent with breaking a fall." Each image got a timestamp, each injury a careful measurement. A social worker named Ms. Chen appeared with her own clipboard. "Mr. Mercer, we'd like to speak with Lily privately, if that's all right." The way she said it made clear it wasn't really a question. Of course, I kept my voice steady. "Lily, honey, these people need to hear what happened. Just like we talked about. The truth. Exactly as you remember it." She nodded. Brave kid that she is. Reminded me of Tom in that moment. Same determined chin, same quiet strength. I walked Miss Chen through everything chronologically while they examined Lily. The knocking, the blood, the photos I'd taken. "I have copies on my phone," I offered, "and I can email them right now if you need." That's when I heard his voice in the hallway. Darren Whitmore, Lily's stepfather. My jaw clenched involuntarily. "Where is she? Is she all right?" He burst in wearing weekend casual clothes, all concerned father act. "I've been looking everywhere. Sarah's worried sick." The staff responded exactly like he wanted. Here was the frantically searching parent, finally arriving. Even his slightly rumpled shirt looked perfectly calculated. "Sir," one of the officers said, "could you tell us what happened tonight?" Darren ran his hands through his hair, the picture of distress. "We had a disagreement about her phone privileges. She got upset, ran to her room. When we checked on her later, she was gone." He glanced my way, eyes narrowing, though I should have guessed where she'd go. "What do you mean by that?" The officer's tone shifted slightly. "Jack's been," Darren sighed heavily, "ever since I married Sarah, he's had trouble accepting it. Always trying to drive wedges, showing up unannounced, telling Lily we can't be trusted." He looked at me with practiced concern. "I know you miss Tom, but this obsession with controlling Lily's life, it's not healthy." My stomach dropped as I watched the officers' expressions change. Suddenly their questions took a different angle. "Mr. Mercer, how often do you encourage Lily to come to your house without her parents' knowledge? Have you ever suggested that Mr. Whitmore poses a threat? Are you currently seeking any form of custody?" The room felt colder with each question. I answered carefully, focusing on tonight's facts. But the damage was spreading. Then Sarah called. They put her on speaker, and her voice crackled through. "Darren would never hurt her. Jack's been poisoning her mind against us ever since the wedding. I'll be there first thing tomorrow to straighten this all out." I requested copies of everything. Photos, reports, statements. The nurse handed them over, but her friendly demeanor had cooled. Even Ms. Chen was looking at me differently now. The lead officer, Matthews, caught me just before I left. "Mr. Mercer, I need you to avoid contact with the household tonight. No calls, no visits. We'll be conducting follow-up interviews in the morning." I nodded, feeling the weight of suspicion settle around my shoulders. Through the exam room window I could see Lily huddled small on the bed. Darren hovering nearby with his concerned father mask firmly in place. The sight made my hands itch to do something. Anything. But I knew one wrong move now could sink us both. "Understood, Officer Matthews," I said, and walked out into the midnight air, wondering how the hell tomorrow's interviews would go. The truth was right there in front of them, but somehow Darren had managed to twist it all around. Now every protective instinct I had looked like evidence against me. The sky was still dark when I pulled into my driveway, that deep blue just before dawn, when everything feels both empty and full of possibilities. My porch light cast long shadows across the familiar tools I'd left out earlier, before everything changed. You ever notice how your own house feels different after a night like that? Like even the walls know something's wrong? I dumped my keys on the counter and started the coffee maker, more out of habit than need. The familiar gurgle usually meant the start of a workday, but this morning it just marked time while I spread the hospital papers across my kitchen table. The smell of burnt coffee filled the air. I'd forgotten to clean the pot from yesterday. Each document told its own piece. Admission forms time-stamped 10:47 p.m. Nurses' preliminary notes. Injury photographs with their careful measurements and clinical descriptions. I arranged them chronologically. Sticky notes marking key details. The social worker's card sat off to one side. Ms. Chen's direct line underlined twice. My phone buzzed around 8 a.m. A text from Ray asking why I wasn't at the Mitchell job site. I typed back quickly, "Family emergency. Need you to run point this week." Ray's response was immediate. "Got your back, boss." The morning crawled by in a blur of paperwork and coffee refills. Then shortly after noon, my phone lit up with a news alert from the county clerk's website. 3 weeks. They'd scheduled the custody hearing for exactly 3 weeks from today, 9 a.m. sharp. The timestamp on the notification seemed to pulse like a warning light. I've worked plenty of tight deadlines in construction, but this one made my throat tight. 3 weeks to gather evidence, file declarations, compile witness lists. and somehow make the truth louder than whatever story Darren had crafted. Exhibits must be submitted no later than, I read aloud, practicing the steady voice I'd need. The kitchen clock ticked between each word. My own voice sounded strange in the empty house, but I kept going, working out the tangles. First observed signs of concerning behavior included. Around 2 p.m., Sarah's statement to the officers hit my inbox. My brother's widow, the woman who'd once trusted me to be her daughter's guardian, now painted me as some kind of obsessed uncle trying to tear apart her perfect new family. Every line echoed Darren's words from the hospital. Jack never accepted our marriage. He's poisoned Lily against us. This isn't healthy. I had to step away from the screen for a minute, hands gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles went white. The echo of those accusations mixed with the constant tick-tick-tick of that damn kitchen clock. Remember that sense of free fall, when you realized the ground you thought was solid just crumbled? That's what it felt like, reading Sarah's statement. I called my foreman back. "Ray, I need to shift some schedules around. The Mitchell project, already on it," he cut in. "Called in some favors, got extra crew lined up. You take care of what needs taken care of. The school counselor's office put me on hold 3 times before connecting me to Mrs. Reeves. I need attendance records," I explained, keeping my voice professional. "And any documented concerns or incidents from the past year." "Of course, Mr. Mercer. We'll need a formal records request." She walked me through the procedures. Each requirement, another tick of the clock. By sunset, I had everything organized in labeled folders. Medical records, police reports, school documents pending. My printer hummed, spitting out cover sheets and exhibit labels. The kitchen table disappeared under neat stacks of paper, each one representing another piece of truth I had to somehow make them see. I stood there looking at it all spread out, while that bitter coffee smell still hung in the air. 3 weeks suddenly felt like both forever and no time at all. How do you compress months of subtle wrong into courthouse-ready evidence? How do you prove a feeling, a pattern, a growing shadow? The truth was right there in those papers, but would it be enough? Darren's version was cleaner, simpler. Just a concerned stepfather dealing with an interfering relative. No messy details, no uncomfortable questions. Just a neat little lie that fit what people wanted to believe. That question followed me as I finally headed toward bed. Every clock in the house marking another minute gone. 3 weeks, 21 days to make truth louder than lies. The next morning, I spread everything across my workshop bench. The same bench where I'd taught Lily how to sand wood last summer. Medical release forms fanned out under the fluorescent light, next to a stack of manila folders labeled with dates. The familiar smell of sawdust helped steady my hands as I worked. I started with the hospital records, marking each inconsistency in Darren's story with yellow sticky notes. 3 separate ER visits in 8 months, each one explained away as sports accidents or playground falls. You know how your gut tightens when pieces start connecting? Yeah, that feeling. My phone buzzed. Ray returning my earlier call. I put him on speaker while I kept sorting papers. "Jack, been thinking about your situation since yesterday," he said, his voice gravelly from years of job site dust. "We both know construction books can tell stories that never make the official reports. What are you getting at, Ray? Remember that Palmer contract last year? How the numbers didn't add up until we found those fake vendor invoices?" Ray paused, letting that sink in. "Your daughter's stepfather runs bigger sites than we do. More money, more places to hide it." I stopped shuffling papers. "You thinking he's got something to hide in those ledgers? Men like him? Always." Ray's chair creaked through the speaker. "I still know people at the permit office and corporate filings are public record. Let me make some calls about his recent projects." Now, I've known Ray for 15 years. He'd started as my foreman when I first took over the business, and he had a nose for crooked deals that had put bloodhounds to shame. If he thought there was something worth finding, there probably was. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Set up one of those shared computer folders. You know, cloud stuff. We'll need somewhere to dump everything we find, and start a list of every vendor and contractor he's worked with in the last 2 years." I booted up my laptop, created the folder, and named it Project Shield. Might have been dramatic, but it felt right. Then I started a spreadsheet, dates, company names, contract amounts. The calendar widget in the corner showed a countdown, 21 days until the hearing. "Meet me at the workshop tomorrow, 7 a.m., I said. "We'll split this up. I'll handle the medical records and school stuff. You take the financial angle." "Copy that, boss." Ray's voice had that tone I knew well, the one that meant he was already 3 steps into planning. "And Jack, get some rest. We're playing the long game here. After we hung up, I kept working under the shop lights. Every medical report, every school note went into chronological order. My phone lit up with another text from Ray. Men like him always slip somewhere. I stared at those words, then at the stacks of papers surrounding me. The workshop felt different at night. Quieter, like it was holding its breath. The only sound was papers shuffling and the soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. This wasn't like building a house, where every step followed a clear plan. This was more like shoring up a foundation that kept shifting under my feet. But maybe Ray was right. Maybe Darren's perfect story had cracks we could pry open. I opened the spreadsheet again, adding columns for payment dates, amounts, and anything that looked odd. The screen's glow lit up my brother's old level hanging on the wall, still straight after all these years. Some things don't bend, no matter how much pressure you put on them. 3 weeks. 21 days to find that slip. That crack. That one loose thread that could unravel everything Darren had built. The workshop felt like scaffolding now. Temporary support while we laid the real foundation underneath. I reached for my coffee mug and found it empty. Dawn wasn't far off, and tomorrow would start early with Ray. But the pieces were moving now. We had a plan, we had direction, and most importantly, we had experience with men who thought they'd covered their tracks. The question wasn't if Darren had slipped somewhere. The question was whether that slip was big enough to change the story he'd sold to everyone else. Ray showed up at 7 sharp the next morning, carrying a cardboard box stuffed with printouts and a thermos of coffee that smelled strong enough to strip paint. We cleared my workbench, spreading everything out under the shop lights. "All right, show me what we're looking at," I said, pulling up a stool. "These are procurement logs from his last 3 sites." Ray laid out color-coded folders. "Notice anything weird about the payment schedules?" I leaned in, squinting at columns of numbers. 15 years of running my own crew had taught me how money should flow through a project. Something felt off. "These Friday payouts," I said, tapping the paper. "They're all round numbers. Construction doesn't work in neat thousands like that." Ray's weathered face cracked into a grin. "Exactly. And look at this vendor here. DW Supply Solutions. Shows up every couple weeks, always gets paid the same day the big transfers go out." We dug deeper, cross-referencing everything against site. Milestone reports. The pattern got clearer with each page we turned. Every major project payment triggered a smaller transfer to this DW supply outfit. "Hold up," I said, remembering something. "You still got access to that lean database?" Ray pulled out his tablet, fingers tapping. "Yeah." "What are we looking for?" "Bank routing numbers. Public liens have to show where the money went. You ever get that feeling when puzzle pieces start clicking together?" That's what happened next. The transfers from DW Supply bounced through 2 more shell companies before landing in an account tagged in 3 different gambling investigations. "Son of a bitch," Ray muttered, scratching his gray stubble. "He's been skimming project funds straight into a poker ring." My hands were steady as I took screenshots, labeled them, saved everything to our shared folder. Years of practice keeping cool when jobs went sideways came in handy right then. "We need to make this simple," I said. "Judge won't wade through construction terminology." I opened a fresh document and started typing, translating the money trail into plain English. On these dates, these amounts were diverted through fake supply companies into gambling accounts. Clean, clear, impossible to misunderstand. The workshop smelled like sawdust and old coffee. Familiar scents that usually meant progress, solutions. Today they meant we were finally getting traction. "Get me contact info for everyone on these transfer approvals," I told Ray. "We'll need sworn statements." He nodded, already making calls. "I know a notary who can come by tomorrow." I was printing our findings, a clean chart showing the money flow, when something made me pause. A sound outside, barely there. The printer hummed, spitting out pages, while I moved to the window. A car sat at the curb, engine idling. Lights off. Dark sedan. Couldn't make out the driver. The street was empty otherwise. Yellow sodium lights casting weird shadows. The engine cut suddenly. Silence swallowed everything. The kind of quiet that feels like someone holding their breath. My pulse picked up, but I kept my movements casual as I stepped back from the window. Ray caught my eye, raised an eyebrow. "Company," I said softly. We both knew what it meant. Someone had noticed us pulling threads, and they didn't like what was unraveling. The evidence sat in neat stacks on my workbench. Proof of every dollar Darren had stolen, every lie he'd told. Maybe he just realized his perfect plan wasn't so perfect after all. The next morning, I drove to the police station with a folder of our findings. Nothing fancy. Just a timeline showing how Darren's shell companies funneled money into gambling accounts. The desk sergeant took the papers without much interest, but at least they were officially on record now. I checked my watch. 2:45 p.m. Lily would be getting out of school soon. We had a routine on Thursdays. I'd pick her up, we'd grab ice cream at Morton's, then head to my place where she'd do homework while I caught up on paperwork. Simple things that meant everything. The afternoon sun felt good on my face as I pulled into my driveway. I was reaching for my briefcase when I noticed a man in a suit walking up, manila envelope in hand. "Jack Mercer?" He adjusted his tie. "I'm here to serve you with legal documents." My stomach dropped. I've been in construction long enough to know what those envelopes usually mean. Someone's suing somebody. But this felt different. "I need you to sign here acknowledging receipt," he said, holding out a clipboard. The pages inside hit me like a sledgehammer. Temporary restraining order. No contact with Lily Mercer pending custody hearing. My hands started shaking as I read the allegations. Pattern of harassment. Undermining parental authority. Psychological manipulation of a minor. Remember how I said I always keep my cool? Well, sometimes even concrete cracks. I had to read it twice because the words kept swimming. Each line twisted everything. How I documented Lily's injuries became obsessive surveillance. Taking her to the hospital was interfering with parental medical decisions. A car pulled up while I was still standing there. Sarah, Lily's mom, got out and headed straight for my front door where Lily's spare clothes and school supplies were stored. "Mom? What's happening?" Lily's voice drifted from the back seat. She must have seen me on the driveway. "Stay in the car, honey," Sarah called back. She wouldn't meet my eyes as she brushed past me into the house. "Uncle Jack?" Lily was pressing her face against the car window now. I opened my mouth but no words came. What could I say? The restraining order was already in effect. One wrong move and I'd prove Darren right about everything. Sarah came out carrying Lily's backpack and the overnight bag she kept at my place. The one with the space rocket pajamas she loved so much. "Sarah, please," I managed. "You know this isn't right." She paused for just a second, clutching the bags. "I have to protect my family, Jack." Then she was moving again, loading everything into their car. "Uncle Jack," Lily's voice cracked as Sarah started the engine. "Don't let them take me!" The car pulled away. Lily's face in the back window got smaller and smaller until all I could see were taillights disappearing around the corner. My legs felt wooden as I walked to the garage. Lily's booster seat sat on a shelf, the one I'd installed so carefully in my truck. I grabbed it, holding on like it was the only solid thing left in the world. You ever have one of those moments where reality goes sideways? Where everything you thought you knew just shifts? My phone was in my hand before I realized I'd pulled it out. Ray picked up on the first ring. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked immediately. I tried to answer but couldn't find the words. Just breathed into the phone while my chest got tighter and tighter. "Jack, talk to me, buddy." I had to start over. "Restraining order. Can't see her until after the hearing." "Jesus Christ," Ray muttered. "Stay put. I'm coming over." My phone chimed with a calendar reminder. 12 days until the hearing. The sound echoed in the empty garage. The street had gone quiet, that heavy kind of quiet that feels like it's watching you. My porch light clicked on automatically, throwing shadows across the driveway where Lily used to draw hopscotch squares with chalk. I stared at the folder of evidence on my passenger seat. All those numbers, all those proof of Darren's lies. But what good was any of it if Lily thought I'd abandoned her? If she had to face the next 12 days thinking I'd given up? That night, sleep wouldn't come. You know that feeling when your mind's like a table saw that won't shut off? Just spinning and spinning, throwing sparks everywhere it shouldn't? I sat at my desk around 3 a.m. staring at a blank document titled, "Notice of Withdrawal." The cursor blinked at me like it was daring me to type. Maybe if I stepped away, Lily could have some peace. No more courtrooms. No more being pulled between adults who were supposed to protect her. My fingers hovered over the keys. The words started coming. "I hereby withdraw my petition for..." But then I remembered her face in that car window, and my hands started shaking so bad I had to delete everything. Instead, I pulled up our evidence files again. The medical records, the photos, the financial trails. My vision blurred as I scrolled through them for probably the 100th time. Ever notice how doubt hits hardest at 3 a.m.? When you're alone with nothing but your thoughts and that damn ticking clock? The workshop doorbell rang around 4:30. Ray stood there holding 2 massive cups of gas station coffee, steam rising in the pre-dawn chill. "You look like hell," he said, pushing past me. "Thanks." I took one of the coffees. It was black and bitter, exactly what I needed. So, Ray dropped into my office chair. You gonna tell me why you're about to do something stupid? I blinked at him. What? Jack, I've known you 20 years. You get this look when you're thinking about folding a hand you should play. He leaned forward. This isn't about you anymore. It's about that little girl and what her stepdad's stealing from her. Ray, no, shut up and listen. He grabbed our financial tracking spreadsheet and slapped it on the desk. Every Friday night transfer, every duplicate invoice, every shell company leading to that gambling ring. You think this stops with you backing down? You think he suddenly grows a conscience? The familiar smell of sawdust and metal filled my lungs as I sank onto my workbench. Ray was right, and I knew it. Backing down would just reward the theft, both of Lily's safety and her future. I pulled up the court docket notice again. 3 weeks had seemed impossible at first. Now we were down to 9 days. But maybe that was enough. Not for anger, not for vengeance, just pure, cold precision. Okay, I said finally. Walk me through our filing deadlines again. Ray grinned and pulled out his notebook. We spent the next hour mapping exhibits that could speak for themselves, bank records that showed the money trail, medical reports that documented patterns. No emotional commentary needed. What about angles most lawyers overlook? I asked. Already on it. Ray tapped his phone. I've got a forensic accountant friend looking at subsidiary disclosure requirements. Turns out construction companies have some interesting reporting rules about project fund allocation. I started making calls as soon as business hours hit. First to Lily's school for attendance records and behavioral notes, then to the hospital to request the ER social worker's sworn statement about that night. Finally, to a child therapist recommended by my lawyer, checking availability to assess Lily's emotional state. The clock on my wall showed 8:45 a.m. 9 days left. The magnitude of it all hit me again as I pressed my palms against the workbench, feeling the familiar worn wood under my hands. I promised you, Rob, I whispered to my brother's memory. I promised I'd keep her safe. The printer hummed to life as Ray sent another batch of documents to it. Everything we had was solid. The financial, fraud, the medical evidence, the witness statements. But something was still missing. That one knockout piece that would change everything when the judge saw it. I watched the pages stack up in the printer tray. 9 days. What weren't we seeing? My phone buzzed around midnight. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another automated court reminder. But Ray's name lit up the screen. And he never called this late unless... Jack. His voice came through in a whisper. You need to see something. Checking my email? I dragged my laptop closer. Coffee mug rings staining the desk around it. What am I looking for? Remember how we were tracing beneficiary updates through the construction company's HR files? Well, I started digging into dormant accounts. Things that hadn't been touched since... He paused. Since Rob passed. The mention of my brother's name made me sit straighter. And? Check your inbox. Just sent it. I clicked the new message. 3 PDF attachments loaded. Scanned documents with that slightly fuzzy quality of older paperwork. The first was a life insurance policy I recognized. Rob had shown it to me years ago, pointing out how he'd structured it to protect Lily's future. You know that feeling when something's wrong but your brain hasn't caught up to why yet? Look at the beneficiary section, Ray said. Page guys 4. Compare the dates. I zoomed in. The original designation showed Lily as sole beneficiary, dated 3 months before Rob died. But below it, a change form redirected the entire payout to an account I didn't recognize. The date was 2 weeks after the funeral. That's impossible, I said. Rob would never... Exactly. Ray's voice hardened. Because he didn't. Look at the signatures. I pulled up both documents side by side. Rob's real signature on the original form had that distinctive loop he always made in the R. The later one, something was off. The strokes were jagged, uncertain, like someone trying too hard to copy something they'd seen. The dates don't even line up right, Ray continued. They're shifted just slightly, like they were added later. And that account number? Traced it through 3 shells before it dead-ended in a private holding company. Guess who's the primary officer? My chest felt tight. Darren, your friendly neighborhood stepfather himself. Ray's disgust was clear. He didn't just lie about hurting Lily, Jack. He stole her whole inheritance. Probably figured no one would check old paperwork once he married her mother. The scope of it hit me like a physical blow. All those Friday night transfers we'd traced, the gambling debts, the shell companies, they weren't just about embezzling from his construction jobs. This was bigger, more personal. He'd literally stolen from a dead man's daughter. I grabbed a fresh legal pad. We need this documented. Professional analysis of the signatures. Forensic comparison of the ink and paper ages. Already compiled a list of certified examiners in the area, Ray said. Top 1 can see us at 8 a.m. if we bring the originals. My hands were steady now as I drafted an affidavit. Request. Everything was aligning. The motive behind his rush to marry Lily's mother. The aggressive moves to discredit me when I started asking questions. The desperate need to maintain control of Lily's custody. Money and manipulation. All wrapped in a bow of fake concern. 7 days, I muttered, checking the clock. Think it's enough time to get this admitted? Has to be. Ray's voice had that tone I knew from countless job sites. The one. That meant he'd solved a crucial problem. This isn't just evidence of financial fraud anymore. It's the whole damn story in 3 pages. Every lie he told traces back to keeping this hidden. I attached the scans to an urgent email from my attorney, marking it for immediate review. The workshop light clicked off on its timer, leaving just my screen glowing in the darkness. My cursor hovered over the send button. This was it, the piece we'd been missing. Not just proof of his crimes, but proof of why he committed them. The fulcrum that could lift his whole facade and let the truth finally show through. I hit send. Morning hit like a freight train after that late-night discovery. I'd barely slept, but it didn't matter. Too much rode on getting every detail right. You know how they say the devil's in the details? Well, today, those details were my best friend. I spread everything across my workshop table, the same one where I'd taught Lily to build her first birdhouse last summer. The wood still had those little paint spots where she'd gotten excited with the brush. Focus, Jack. Page numbers match? Ray asked, shuffling through his own stack. Triple-checked. I tapped the corner of each exhibit. Original on file, 2 certified copies, plus the backup set in my truck. The handwriting expert, Dr. Martinez, arrived right at 8. She was one of those precise people who made me feel better just by how carefully she handled each document. Her eyes narrowed behind steel-rimmed glasses as she compared the signatures. The discrepancies are conclusive, she said, pointing to specific marks. Notice how the pressure points change here and here? The original signature shows consistent hand strength. The later one hesitates, especially at the starting points of each. I'll let her. I watched her sign her declaration, each page getting its own exhibit sticker. You ever notice how something as simple as a numbered label can make a document feel more powerful? My phone buzzed. Email from Lily's school counselor. She'd attached attendance records highlighting behavior changes that started 3 months ago. Withdrawal in class, dropped grades, sudden resistance to going home. All time-stamped, all documented. Got the ER social worker confirmed too, Ray said, checking his notes. She'll be there at 8:30 sharp, ready to testify about Lily's initial statement and demeanor. We spent the afternoon doing practice runs. Ray would sit across from me, channeling every nasty trick he'd seen lawyers pull in construction disputes. So you're saying you just happened to find this insurance policy right before the hearing? He'd snap, leaning forward. Awful convenient. Timing, wouldn't you say? No, sir, I'd respond, keeping my voice steady. We discovered it while investigating a pattern of financial irregularities that, just answer yes or no. Context matters here. The document surfaced as part of a broader investigation into moving to strike as non-responsive, Your Honor. After the 4th round, Ray nodded. Better. You're not taking the bait anymore. Keep everything tied to the documents and timeline. I laid it out like building a house. Foundation first with Lily's hospital visit. Framework of the financial investigation, then the insurance fraud, as the roof that made the whole structure make sense. Every piece supporting the others. The sun was setting when I finally headed home. First thing I did was lay out my court clothes. The charcoal suit I saved for client meetings. Crisp white shirt. Blue tie that Lily said made me look trustworthy. 3 pens went into my breast pocket. Always have backups. And a spare copy set into my briefcase. Everything's ready, I told Ray over the phone while setting my alarm for 6. Now we just need the judge to see it clearly. He will, Ray said. Truth's got weight to it. Even through all the legal tap dancing, I tried to sleep. I really did. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw those courthouse steps. Heard Darren's smooth lies. Pictured Lily's face if this somehow went wrong. The hall clock struck midnight. Each chime like a hammer on steel. Down in my workshop, the printer had finally cooled after spitting out that last set of copies. 9 hours. 9 hours until those courthouse doors would open. Would the judge see past Darren's respectable facade? Or would all this evidence, the forged policy, the stolen inheritance, the whole dirty scheme, get tangled up in objections and procedural rules? I got up and checked my briefcase one more time. Each tab was color-coded. each page numbered, every exhibit stickered and logged. The truth was in there, organized and ready. Now, we just had to make it speak. The security guard waved me through the metal detector at 8:15 sharp. My lawyer, Sandra Chen, waited by the third-floor elevator, case files tucked under her arm like a shield. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded, though my throat felt like I'd swallowed sawdust. The courtroom doors stood open, morning light streaming across empty wooden benches. Know that feeling when you're about to start a critical job, and your whole body knows the stakes? That's what hit me as we walked in. Darren was already there, looking fresh-pressed in a navy suit, working the small crowd of local reporters like he was running for office. His smile never reached his eyes, though. I'd seen warmer looks from rattlesnakes. "Just focus forward," Sandra murmured as we took our seats. The counsel table felt like hard pine under my palms. Behind us, I heard Ray slip into the gallery, right where we'd planned. At exactly 9, the bailiff's voice cut through the murmurs. "All rise. The Superior Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marcus Wells presiding." The judge entered, robes settling as he sat. He was one of those older guys with steel gray hair and reading glasses that made you straighten up automatically. His eyes swept the room once before landing on the case file. "Calling matter number 2023 CV 4891 in re guardianship of Lily Mercer." He glanced up. "I've reviewed the submitted exhibits. Counsel may proceed with opening remarks." Sandra rose, smooth as water. "Your Honor, this case began with a child's desperate plea for help, but it reveals a calculated pattern of deception and financial exploitation." She laid it out exactly like we'd planned. Clean, chronological, connecting every dot. The hospital report. The escalating lies about my obsession. The money trail through those shell vendors. And finally, the forged insurance policy that showed why Darren needed me out of the picture. "Objection, Your Honor." Darren's attorney shot up. "Counsel is making unsupported allegations about document authenticity without proper foundation." The judge's glasses caught the light. "Ms. Chen, Dr. Elena Martinez is present to testify regarding her forensic analysis of the signatures, Your Honor. She's provided a detailed declaration comparing the original policy with the altered version." "Very well. Dr. Martinez, please approach." Elena stepped forward, professional as ever in her charcoal pantsuit. She walked the court through each signature comparison, pointing out pressure points and hesitation marks that proved forgery. The clerk projected the documents side by side on the courtroom screen while I tried to remember how to breathe normally. "You see here," Elena indicated with her laser pointer, "the original signature shows fluid, consistent strokes. The later version demonstrates classic signs of simulation. Pen lifts, tremor, and unnatural starting points." Darren's lawyer stood again, this time switching tactics. "Your Honor, this entire investigation stems from my client's valid concerns about Mr. Mercer's unhealthy fixation on his stepdaughter. The restraining order clearly shows—" "Counselor," Judge Wells cut in. "I'm still waiting to hear the relevance of that order to these financial discrepancies." The clerk switched slides. There it was in black and white. The inheritance amount Darren had, stolen from Lily, right next to his Friday night transfers to that gambling ring. The gallery's collective intake of breath felt like a wave. I risked a glance at Darren. His smile had vanished, replaced by something tight and cold around his eyes. He whispered urgently to his attorney while the judge studied the numbers, hands folded under his chin. Judge Wells removed his glasses, polished them slowly with a cloth, then replaced them with deliberate care. The courtroom went so quiet you could hear the wall clock ticking. My palms were slick against my slacks as I waited. 21 days of investigation. Countless hours of prep. Ray's relentless digging. It all came down to what the judge would say next. Would he see through Darren's smokescreen? Or would we need days more testimony to prove what these documents already showed? The judge's eyes settled on the financial exhibits one more time, his expression unreadable as stone. Judge Wells set his glasses down with the kind of careful precision that makes a courtroom hold its breath. His eyes moved from the financial exhibits to Darren's face, then to me. "The evidence before this court presents a deeply troubling pattern," he began, voice carrying to every corner. "Most significantly, the altered life insurance documentation shows clear signs of forgery, corroborated by expert testimony. When combined with the suspicious financial transfers uncovered during investigation, we have a situation that demands immediate action." I felt Sandra's slight nod beside me. We'd built this case piece by piece, but hearing a judge lay it out made it finally feel real. This court cannot, in good conscience, allow guardianship to remain with any party credibly accused of fraud and theft. particularly when the victim is the very child they're meant to protect. The judge's tone hardened. Therefore, effective immediately, I am ordering protective placement of the minor child with her uncle, Jack Mercer. The air seemed to vanish from the room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Darren's shoulders cave inward, like someone had cut his strings. His lawyer started furiously scribbling notes. Furthermore, Judge Wells continued, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Investigation. The evidence suggests multiple felony offenses, including fraud, forgery, and theft of inherited assets. I glanced over at Karen, Lily's mother. She sat perfectly still, staring at the floor tiles like they might offer some escape. The woman who'd called me obsessed, who'd helped Darren paint me as the villain. Now she couldn't even look up. Bailiff, please prepare the emergency custody transfer order for signatures. Clerk, we'll need certified copies for all parties and law enforcement. The judge's gavel crack punctuated his words. We'll recess briefly while documents are prepared. The next 15 minutes moved like clockwork. The bailiff called us forward one by one to sign. My hand was steady as I wrote my name. I'd waited 3 weeks for this moment, and I wasn't about to rush it now. Each stroke of the pen felt like sealing a promise I'd made years ago over my brother's grave. The court thanks counsel for their thorough presentation of evidence, Judge Wells said after the last signature dried. Mr. Mercer, the court appreciates your diligence in protecting your niece's interests. I nodded, words stuck in my throat. Thank you, Your Honor, for seeing the truth. As we filed out, I could hear the buzz of reporters gathering in the hallway. The double doors opened to a forest of microphones and camera lenses. Ray appeared at my elbow, his weathered hand squeezing my shoulder. Jack, he muttered, nodding toward the courthouse steps where the main press corps waited. They're gonna want to hear about those money transfers. Every parent who sees this will want blood. He was right. The gambling ring, the stolen inheritance, the forged documents. Once that hit the evening news, Darren's reputation would be ash. His company would have questions. His colleagues would distance themselves. The carefully constructed image he'd built would crumble like dry sand. Sandra touched my arm. Ready? She asked quietly. I straightened my tie, feeling the weight of the certified order in my breast pocket. Yeah, I said. Let's go. Behind us, through the closing courtroom doors, I could hear Judge Wells's voice already starting the next case. But his words about Darren still rang in my head like a bell that couldn't be unrung. Fraud, forgery, theft. The same words that would soon echo across every local news channel. The hallway seemed to stretch forever, microphones waiting at the end like finish line flags. Ray walked steady beside me, Sandra on my other side, as cameras started flashing. Somewhere in this building, Darren was probably huddled with his lawyer, realizing his world had just imploded. But right now, all I could think about was getting to Lily's school to bring her home. The order crinkled against my chest as I walked. 21 days of fighting, of digging through papers, of proving what was true. And now it all came down to what would happen when those cameras started rolling. The courthouse steps were a circus. Camera crews jostled for position, while reporters checked phones and muttered into earpieces. I'd seen media scrums before, but this felt different, like sharks circling after they'd smelled blood in the water. Mr. Mercer, they surged forward as we emerged. What's your response to the allegations against Darren Whitmore? Ray kept a steady hand on my shoulder, steering us through the crowd. Sandra held up the court documents like a shield, professional to the last. But it was the uniformed deputy beside us who really parted the sea of microphones. A reporter thrust her phone in my face, showing a breaking news alert. Sir, Whitmore Construction just released a statement. They've terminated Darren Whitmore's employment, citing ethical violations inconsistent with company values. Any comment? I almost smiled. Almost. The company hadn't waited for criminal charges. They'd cut him loose the moment the judge's ruling hit the wire. Guess they didn't want their name anywhere near words like forgery and embezzlement that were already trending on local news feeds. 2 questions, I said, stopping at the bottom of the steps. Then we're done. The reporters went quiet. Recorders thrust forward. Is it true Mr. Whitmore forged insurance documents to steal his stepdaughter's inheritance? The court records speak for themselves. The evidence showed systematic fraud targeting funds meant to protect a child's future. I kept my voice steady, professional, just like talking through a difficult build with a client. What happens now? I glanced at the temporary custody papers in Sandra's hand. Now, I honor a promise I made to my brother. His daughter will have the safe home she deserves. Ray opened the car door as the deputy cleared our path. Lily pressed close to my side, quiet but steady. She'd been so brave in court, facing down the man who'd betrayed her. Trust. Now she just looked tired, ready to go home. No further questions, Sandra announced firmly. My client's priority is his niece's privacy and well-being. The drive home felt surreal. After 21 days of pure hell, watching the truth finally surface. I don't know. Maybe I expected to feel more triumphant. Instead, I just felt grateful. Grateful the judge saw through the lies. Grateful Ray had found that insurance paperwork. Grateful Lily was safe. You ever notice how evening light hits old wood just right? Makes it glow like honey. That's what I saw when we walked into my workshop. Sunset streaming through the windows, warming the maple workbench where I'd spent countless nights building my case. I hung the certified court orders in simple frames next to the photo of Mike, my brother, Lily's dad. He was grinning in his work clothes, that old leather tool belt slung low on his hips. The same belt that had been hanging on its peg since the day we lost him. "Hey, kiddo," I said softly, lifting the belt down. The leather was still supple, worn smooth by years of honest work. "Your dad wanted you to have this someday. Think maybe that day's today." Lily took it carefully, running her fingers over the scratches and stitches. Her hands traced the spots where the leather had molded perfectly to Mike's waist. "It still smells like him," she whispered. "Like sawdust and, I don't know. Just Dad. He was a builder," I said. "Created things that lasted. Protected what mattered." I watched her hold the belt close, like a shield made of memories. "That's what real men do, Lily. Real men protect. They don't destroy." She nodded, understanding in her eyes that went deeper than her years. The belt gleamed warmly in her grip, transformed from a simple tool into something more. A symbol of everything we'd fought to preserve. Through the workshop window, I could see news vans still circling the neighborhood. Tomorrow's headlines would tell the story of Darren's fall from grace. But right now, in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was right here. A promise kept, a truth revealed, and a young girl holding her father's legacy in hands that would never let it go.